Hi, my name is Taira Guerrero Gonzalez, and I wanted to talk to you today about frontotemporal dementia. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this video. My mother's name is Maria Los Angeles Gonzalez Pereira. This is her picture. My mother passed away on July 21st, 2022, 8 months ago today, when she was going to be 71 years old on August 11th. It is very important for me through sharing our story and expressing my humble opinion on this subject to honor my mother, her greatness in all areas of her life, her great courage and the human quality, her warmth, her infinite love, her generosity to honor the memory and short of someone so much loved, who I am sure would also appreciate this opportunity and could be happy to be able to share our experience. Just the two of us, so united, so alone, with the rest of the families who suffer the diagnosis of the disease, with the love and the hope of being able to give them support through sharing a little bit of our journey with FTD. My mother was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. Today, we are talking about frontotemporal dementia, a fairly known disease, a disease that has neither cure nor a medical treatment that can slow the progression of the disease, being therefore irreversible. There are only antipsychotics, drugs that can somehow control or palliate the effects but not cure. This is one of the most terrible first presentations of this cruel disease. The part of the brain in which the illness is manifested represents the continuation of this cruelty. It affects the frontal and temporal lobes of the brain, which means an affectation of the area that governs the behavior of the individual, his capacity of reasoning and understanding. It is a disease that, when untreated, implies the absence of peace. I qualified it as the absence of peace by the permanent restlessness of the patient, by the aggressive attitude and medication, by the incapacity, in short, to find peace at the advances and during the first months before and after the diagnosis until a treatment has started. We'll look at this issue in detail because another very important situation to highlight in this disease is that every day is different. Every day is a challenge, and it is so hard that every day is the best day that your loved one will ever find himself again anymore, since it is an irreversible and progressive disease. After this quick presentation, I would like to first address the fundamental role that the following actors can play in this process. I have divided this initial presentation into three pillars: the disease according to the patient, the disease according to the family and the caregiver, who can or cannot be a family member, the disease in relation to third parties. Based on the first group or pillar, the one related to the patient himself, I distinguish two stages: the present before the diagnosis of the disease, and once the disease becomes present. Before the diagnosis, in our day-to-day life, we do not imagine that one day we may have dementia. We may suffer frontotemporal dementia. This disease is a very small percentage of cases that are possibly of genetic transmission, hereditary, but for the rest, and most of the cases, the origin is unknown. Who can think that one day they will suffer from this disease? A disease that many people have never even heard of before. Who can even consider this possibility when the thought of death worries and scares so many people? The sad reality is that any kind of disease happens. It can happen, and sometimes it presents itself in the form of dementia, which means depriving the person of the ability to govern his person and property by himself, to be able to decide for himself, placing him in a situation of more and more dependence until the moment of death. Perhaps I raise this first approach when the person is healthy, when there is still no diagnosis. It would be good to think about what we want for ourselves, what we wish, what we decide to force them, with respect to ourselves and our care at the moment that FTD appears. Who will be our caregiver? How do we want to organize the sharing of our assets? And most important of all, who care do we want to receive? Where, in what way, how do we want to plan the care that our person will receive during the illness and at the time of our departure? I would like to make an appeal to say that as healthy people, before any diagnosis, we should not be afraid to raise, organize, and ask ourselves these questions about our own destiny at the moment when we will no longer be able to decide for ourselves, when we will be absolutely dependent. This is the aspect I wanted to point out related to the person before the diagnosis. With respect to the person, once the diagnosis has been received, the patient needs peace, needs to be surrounded by love, surrounded by what he knows, by his vital references, family, friends, photos, songs, his home. A patient suffering from FTD needs understanding and empathy when it treats us in a way that we know he could have never treated us if the disease had not existed. Patients with FTD need a routine, a table of activities, physiotherapy, speech therapist, neuropsychiatrist, to stimulate him to preserve his cognitive abilities as long as possible. FTD patients are in need of absolute observation in the face of the progress of the disease and neurological deterioration, since as this progress it will not be possible for them to express themselves, to say that he or she is in pain, to express feelings and desires. But they do feel and they do cry and they do laugh. My mom said 2 times that she was sorry for me. The first time she said that it was because she did not like the way in which I was dressed. The second time she did not continue the sentence, but I know pretty well what she was trying to say. She also said I had a brother, because my uncle, his only brother, so much loved, had passed away from us before the diagnosis. Consciousness in a way we cannot understand, we cannot even imagine. It's there until the very end, and it is shown through flashes of light. At first, FTD patients will be able to express themselves in a simple way, then in a slightly more incoherent way, and in the end, silence will prevail. This kind of patient will not talk to us. They will not tell us where the hearing hurts. That means in their eyes, their ears, their 24/7 assistant, the doctor, the nurse, the physiotherapist, their speech therapist, everything constantly to be able, as far as possible, to foresee, and when this is not possible, to be able to have as best as possible the ability to adapt each day to the circumstances of the patient. This is hard, very hard, because every day will be different. Because every day will present a new challenge for which we are probably not prepared. Even being professionals, even being experts in dementia, since we will be observing it in a loved one, in a person so dear to us that we would give everything to keep it away from the disease, a person for whom we would give our life, and yet this is not possible. The disease could still be there. Returning to the sick person, he cannot speak, he cannot express himself, but he feels, he suffers, loves. He enjoys the sun, he enjoys the walk, he good meal, a song, being told about his loved ones, about what he was doing, being read a diary, he wrote it, being shown a photo, being talked to. Not talking is not synonymous to not stop feeling, to stop needing to be caressed, even if this also means knowing how to give in, knowing how to respect his rest time, his time in which his brain needs to recover his strengths. This kind of patient also needs the food to be adapted to his body, his needs, as the disease progresses, when there is aphasia, for example, to prevent pneumonia by bronchial aspiration when the food has not been properly swallowed. A frontotemporal dementia patient needs a whole world of stimuli, activity, rest, quality of life, and love, good food, that he will no longer be able to offer himself, and that he will have to offer him. Since we are the ones who know the person, love him, know what he always wanted, what he always desired, and the care that he always lays on himself, and therefore, as far as possible, should continue to offer him every day. For example, I think of my mother's case, her daily beauty ritual, her tanning, her cream, until the last moment she had it, as well as her walks until they were possible, her visits to the hairdresser, her lunches out, since they were always things she loved. And the cruelty of this disease, we can offer the greatest possible love and all the protection to the loved one, and that is the best treatment, the greatest thing we can do for the person. In my ignorance, I am not a doctor and not an expert in dementia. If I had to describe the brain of the sick person, I would describe it as a volcano. A volcano that wants to be constantly erupting, with respect to which medicines only manage to palliate the symptoms, to reduce them, but not to make them disappear, not to make the damage reversible. Once I have spoken of the sick person, it is time to address the next pillar, which is that of the family and caregiver. As for the family, I distinguish three types of family: the family with whom we share our day-to-day life, parents, children, partner. In this sense, I lost my day-to-day family when my mother died. I have been left without her forever. On the other hand, there is extended family, parents if they live far away, the lost uncles, cousins, and nephews and nieces. Finally, the family of life, friends, loved ones that we meet, that we get to know throughout the course of our existence, that accompany us, that take care of us, that show us their love beyond the types of blood. Regarding these different types of family, the family with whom we share the day-to-day is going to be the one that first of all receives the shock of the diagnosis, the one that has to make decisions, the one that has to accompany the sick person. In my case, my mother and I lived in Paris when I had 2 jobs. I had to quit my job, return to Spain when my mother had a retirement and social security, in order to be able to offer the medical treatment that we could afford. As a lawyer, I had to ask to be appointed as my mother's legal representative, and it's so hard. I had to take charge of the accounts when it was my mother who had always managed everything. The person who I always gave the salary when I was paid each month. I had to learn to cook since it was something my mother had always done. I didn't know how to make a puree, strawberry potato omelette. Suddenly I had to cook. I had to know how to do it. I had to prepare good dishes for my mother, and I had no idea how to cook. I could cook during the night when my mom was sleeping and spend hours in the kitchen at nights. And sometimes she would throw the food away, and all the food I had taken hours to prepare would last. You have to keep in mind that during the day you're going to have time. The day is for the patient, for him to do his activities, for his cognitive stimulation, for him to take his medication. The later is a challenge because most of the patient will not want to take it. I had the privilege of being able to decide to leave everything to take care of my mom, to give her all the love in the world every day, to take care of her. But at the same time, I have to say that every day was a challenge, a new struggle to take care of her, to protect her, and to understand the disease, because the only way to take care of the patient as well as possible is to understand his or her disease. I could have been so grateful to know that there are machines that crush medication and you can sneak it into the food. It took me so long to find it out. I could have been so grateful to have understood that my mother's behavior was due to her illness long before her diagnosis, and not because I did something wrong. It is hard to accept, hard to understand that your loved one suffers from dementia, that all of a suddenly you become your mother's mother. You have to take care of her, you have to look after her, watch over her, warm her clothes in the stove while you bathe her, as she did with you as a child, comb her hair as she did with you seeing her sons, that she sent to you when you were a child. It is hard to suddenly understand that you are going to face that. No one who has not known the disease can understand beforehand that you can be beaten, that there can be aggression, insults, or that every day your loved one talks less and less and less until she cannot talk anymore. And you are her eyes, her voice, her everything 24/7. You do not imagine that the disease has made that for years, and your mind has not been able to hug you because she said she shocked when you hugged her, but nevertheless she hugged everyone. But you, suddenly, when the disease is advancing, is the moment when you can kiss and hug your mother again. You can't imagine that the disease means sleeping next to her, holding her head. In my case, sleeping a year and a half in an armchair, to watch over her sleep, to give her security, and at the end, to be holding her hand and to feel quickly while you sleep if her fever has risen, was able. You do not imagine that not all symptoms will be due to FTD, and that sometimes another monster can present itself, such as cancer, and the doctors will nevertheless blame the symptoms that you religiously describe to them as typical of dementia. You do not imagine that accompanying your loved one will mean many nights and days at their side in the hospital, at their side being their nurse, their physiotherapist, their speech therapist, and you will feel a deep loneliness because you see that from the health system they are not listening to you or paying the necessary attention to your loved one. You don't imagine that in the end, the last kiss, the last walks, the songs you sent to her, the meals you prepared for her or took her out to eat, will be the most special and precious moments you can treasure. No one told you to stop the time to enjoy them. While you were worried about the medication, her medical appointments, her cognitive activities, all very important, but which unfortunately generated enough anguish to prevent you from enjoying the instant, the little make of the instant next to your loved one. Then you can offer her in this disease, enjoy the quality of life that you can give her in this disease until the end. Nobody tells you to have enough peace, to enjoy all that, and no to be anxious about the day-to-day, about the fear of an epileptic seizure, of another stroke. My mother had 3 strokes and had epileptic seizures. Obviously, I was terrified of all that. But in the end, the most important thing, the most beautiful thing, was to be able to give her a walk, to love her, to do everything I knew could make her happy, to play her music, to give her the facial facial and body care that she had always given herself. If, as a day-to-day family, you decide to accompany the sick person, you must know that every day will be hard and that the greatest gift is precisely to be able to offer her the best, to know that you have given the best of yourself to cure her happiness. I was privileged and blessed because I decided to leave everything. I decided to take care of my mom, to give her all the love she deserved. But if it's not possible, if you cannot offer 24/7 care, please do not fail the person when she needs you the most. Visit her as often as possible. Show her your love. Make sure she's well taken care of. No one, as the one who loves us, to take care of us when it is not possible to verify that we are being well taken care of. There is no moment in which the person will not need us more than at the moment of their greatest vulnerability in the face of illness. Beyond all the fear and the great responsibility, please do not abandon them at that moment. This is what I ask and beg of every family member on a daily basis. Also to a caregiver who decides to be by the loved one's side until the end, I must acknowledge the hardness, the pain of the road, the mystery of the day-to-day, because you do not know how the disease will progress and how in the end you find yourself alone dressing your loved one, putting her, perfuming her, waking her up. In the case of my mother, once she has passed away without knowing what she would have worded, what she would have decided. At that moment, when what you really want is to be by her side in eternity, it is very difficult. It is not an easy road, but in my case, I must say that with all that pain, with all that sorrow that squeezes my soul and my chest, I feel blessed and grateful to have been with my mom, to have accompanied her night and day at all times in her illness, given her my hand and all my love until the last moment. Another important thing for the caregiver is that you can find yourself with several years of inactivity after the care of the loved one, in which there is no work on your resume, there is nothing you will have to explain, or you may be asked, and it may take several months until you find a job. It is very, very important to be able to have a assistance fund for several months at least until you can start working again. In my case, I had to get by with 2,000 euros for 3 months and pay a mortgage that my father had me to pay in the following months. My father lives in Nicaragua and he suffered terribly because of my mother's illness. Our 3 kids got sick because of the sadness. I had to take them to the bed. There were spills in the house. And my first salary arrived on November the 6th, because I did not enter the labor market again until October. I spent 2 months looking for a job and 1 month working until I received my salary. There are hard times and I really do not know how I did. But my humble advice is to try to have a cushion of assistance for at least several months until the person can find a job. This is not something simple because this means money that is not covered by social security, money to pay for a speech therapist, a physiotherapist, a neuropsychologist, to pay for private medical consultations that are going to be required. In my case, paying a neurologist in Paris to follow up on my mother's health and the medication she was taking, as well as another private one in Spain that was following her. The disease entails orthopedic expenses, walker, transit chair with toilet where you can no longer go to the bathroom, wheelchair, special pillows, hospital bed, pharmacy expenses, medicines, diapers, creams. You need to deal with all that, and if there is division in the family, related to the destination of the expenses, please. Whatever the sick person needs, whatever he needs to the quality of his health, he was paying. In my case, I was all alone, so I had no explanation to get to any brother or sister. My mother had her monthly retirement. Everything went to her walks, to her lunch and snacks, to her hairdresser. Even if we did not go by bus and I had to push the wheelchair everywhere, even if I had no one to help me clean the house and cook and I had to do it all alone, we had to decide where to spend the money. I had to pay for her physiotherapy sessions 2 or 3 times a week, for a speech therapist twice a week, and the rest of the days I did the exercises with her. As for the extended family I mentioned before, please keep in mind that the family caregiver has a 24/7 job, a constant, hard, serious responsibility that she is not always going to be able to answer the phone, that she is not always going to be able to be aware of the message. But just a message saying, I am with you. How was your day? We talk whenever you want. I'm here to listen to you. You tell me when I can make a video call to talk to the patient so he can see me. That means aware of accompaniment. When my mom got sick, I guarded her friends and relatives on WhatsApp, asking them to call her, to stimulate her, to talk to her, since it was a way for her to talk to them too. I asked them to share the clouds so they could remind her of things, could chat with her without tiring her. This makes the caregiver feel accompanied and the sick person feels very much loved. The combo is when it is possible. And if the caregiver gives us the go-ahead to visit the person to simply bring food. Help with the cleaning while the caregiver bathes the sick person, prepare lunch while the caregiver does the rehabilitation of the sick person, or practices scarcity activities with them. For the caregiver, that's jackpot. Please, family members, remember that the way you see the patient today, you will never see him or her better later on. Please make it the most of it. Be aware that he or she is a patient that do not run away from his or her actions. Be aware of the caregiver's difficulties without judging, with kindness, and always putting yourself in the caregiver and the patient's shoes. Do not judge. Do not say, I know what I would do, because you cannot even for a moment imagine the struggle the caregiver is having, how difficult it is, how insecure the person feels about the care he or she must provide, about the day-to-day life of the disease whose name you are probably just heard for the first time when your loved one was diagnosed. And please, relatives, say hello to the sick person, want to talk to him, want to visit him, and whenever it is possible, even if you think they will not recognize you. Feel the love, feel the affection, and I can assure you that every familiar face is familiar, and the dear one will greet you warmly. As for the family of life, friends, life companions that we met in our tumultuous cosmic journey, sending a message with love, going to the house and preparing a meal if you our caregiver friends as well, going to the hospital with some hot soup for the person who is day and night next to the sick person who perhaps has only been able to eat the sandwich all day, is already a gift. The words of love, of accompaniment, of someone's presence are everything. They mean everything in the face of the darkness of the disease. As for the case of the non-family caregiver, if you happen to work caring for someone suffering from FTD, please read about the disease, learn a little, find out about the world of the patient, what their needs are when you start the job, and offer them all the love, affection, and empathy that you can offer to a family member, a loved one who is going through the same ordeal. If we want the best for our loved one, we must want the same for the person we care for, and that means love, empathy, and a love of patience and understanding. It will not be an easy job. It will probably not be a well-paid job either, but the sick person is not to blame. The sick person needs us. We are his support and his pillar. So if we accept the job, we must accept being very aware of the hardness of it and the degree of dedication, love, of generosity of the soul that it will require from us. It is not easy to change diapers, wash, give medication. It is not easy even be your family member and doing it with all the love. It is much harder if you have to do it with a stranger, but that is why you have to be very aware of the reality of the disease at the time of accepting the job. After this mention, we come, I hope it is not taking too long, to the third pillar, the one of third parties involved. Third parties that can qualify as private and public parties. Private parties is the person you meet on the street when you're walking your loved one in a wheelchair, and suddenly he or she helps you push the wheelchair a little way down the road, or smiles at your loved one, or is touched when he or she hears the sayings. My mom, until 2 months before she passed away, works with me on 100 sayings a day, her songs and her multiplication table, even though she didn't speak any more words. To those third parties, the family caregiver or the employed caregiver will be most grateful for your understanding and help. Please be humane, be empathetic. When you see one concerned person caring for another, we all form a protective circle for the sick person. My mother used to run away to go to the bank to ask for her money, to ask for a monthly retirement that belonged to her. Hide the house key from your mother's from your mother so she wouldn't leave. It is very hard. But once she found it, and she escaped while I was taking a shower. It was so important when she got to the bank that they had the sensitivity and the knowledge to be able to call me and tell me that my mom was there so I could run to her. The waiter who helps you so she can take her medication, the one you count on every afternoon to take it when you give her a snack, the hairdresser who comes to the house to take care of her and adapts her to her needs in a humane and caring way. It is so important. Thank you. Thank you so much to all those heroes. There are also times when I am grateful to those unknown people, third parties who suddenly did you good. I must say that it hurts when the opposite happens, when they treat you badly, when they have no understanding with you, completely ignoring the reality that you are living while taking care of your loved one. There are examples of that, unfortunately, too. For example, being 10 minutes late for an appointment with the administration. It is raining, you have gone by cab, you have had to pay your mother, take her to the bathroom, and most of the time you do not know how long it's going to take. You cannot hurry her up. So you arrive pushing the wheelchair and they tell you that you're late and you have missed your appointment. Please, gentlemen, empathy, humanity with the sick person and the caregiver as well. Or the case of the waiter who gets angry because your mom orders something and then she changes her mind when they have prepared it for her and she wants something else. Please be patient. I'm going to pay the 2 orders. Don't get angry. You don't know what the family is living and suffering. And finally, returning to the subject of the administration when we talk about the public sector, empathy, please. Do not say the word dementia in front of the patient, because the family caregiver may be upset that their loved one may find out. Do not say how nice that they are taking her away. In front of the patient and the family caregiver, when they take the person to the room after leaving the emergency room in the hospital, because she has had a stroke, and in her anguish, in her nervousness, she is all the time wanting to pull out the IV. Those words that for the person who pronounced them may be irrelevant, have a great meaning, a great value. They hurt a lot when they are hurt. Please help the person. By shouting, the patient will not understand what he should not do. He has dementia. His frontal and temporal lobes are affected. He will not understand. He will want to get out of bed, leave the hospital, take off the sack they have put on his recently operated roommate. Is not going to understand them, even if they tell him 1,000 times not to do it, much less by shouting at him. Unfortunately, we have also had experienced this. I spent the day and night as permanent pass with my mom at the hospital, but I had to go home to take a bath, to prepare something to eat, and to take care of my cats, especially Manolo Lopez, who is almost 70 years old, had diabetes and had to be injected with insulin. I had to do it 2 times per day. After my mom's breakfast and after her dinner, I was coming back to the hospital as soon as possible. I did notify the hospital. In 2 hours at the most, I was back. The rest of the day I spent it at the hospital with my mom, and when my beloved Manolo Lopez passed away, I would go home every other day to take care of the other 2 cats while my mother was in the hospital. Please, nursing and staff, when the family caregiver has to be absent for a couple of hours, be alert, so that the patient does not pull out the IV, so that he or she does not try to grab and fall down. The caregiver is there all the time. Please listen to him, no matter if it is family caregiver or an unemployed caregiver. He is the eyes and ears of the sick person. He is not studied medicine, but he can describe to you perfectly the day-to-day life of patients' symptoms. Listen to him, to her, when he or she calls the emergency room. Don't say Mary English. Be empathetic and proactive to what the caregiver tells you. Act with urgency if the caregiver asks for it. Do not assume that because a person has dementia, they will not be able to regain mobility in one hand, for example. My mother was able to recover her hand and it was her third stroke, but no one was betting on it. I had to make her recovery and she recovered. Please be humane. Do not assume that because a person is demented, their days are over, because they have a lot to live for, because they have a lot of love to receive, and they deserve the same quality of medical care as any other patient. And please do not blame all the symptoms of dementia. Investigate, listen and listen to the caregiver, because there may be serious symptoms behind that require an RMI. My mother had metastasis and they did not see it. The symptoms were attributed to dementia, and when they saw it, when they finally decided to do an MRI, because the fever did not decrease, the words were, your mother had a short life expectancy, and now she has a much shorter one. Please be humane. Listen and feel beyond the cult protocol. There was no one more cared for, watched over and attended to than my mother. But I was completely alone because the medical services did not know or did not want to do the right follow-up. They abandoned us. They abandoned my mother. Please, with the sensitivity, the necessary training so that does not happen again. When I called palliative care at 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday, July the 80th, because my mother stopped eating and was in agony with death rattle, they told me to leave my mother for 5 minutes and go to the nearby Chinese store to buy a vaporizer to hydrate her mouth. In that 5 minutes, there was zero. I don't leave my mom, but if she needs a vaporizer right now, I ordered it online to bring it to her. Now tell me, when are you coming? They showed up on Thursday, July the 21st at 2:05 p.m. where they had been called on Monday at 9 a.m. That's complete abandonment. That is complete abandonment. It cannot happen. Families cannot suffer such cruelty, and for that we need health services, public authorities sensitive to the reality of the disease, to what the patient and the family caregiver go through. I therefore take advantage of this humble contribution to ask for awareness in the public sector, to ask for visibility and knowledge of the disease, and as far as possible to do as much research as necessary to see if it could be attainable at some point to obtain a drug that could prevent its evolution, and even better, that could prevent it. My mother and I would like to think so for the next generations. Thanks to all the extended family, the family of life, the third person who have been there, who have been supportive, who have offered us human warmth in this journey. Thank you. I know I speak in the name of my mother and in myself, if I say we will always be grateful. Thank you, Mom, for being the best, for your eternal love, for your infinite affection that every day you have given me. I need you so much. Thank you. I regret infinitely not having been able to avoid your dementia, the strokes, the epilepsy, so finally the metastasis. I could have given everything to be able to avoid it. Unfortunately, I could not. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for watching this video. And if you want to ask me any questions or any information I can provide, I am at your disposal. Have a very nice day.